Okay, so moving down, we come to the thoracic region, which is really all of these are going to articulate with costals. Okay, not all the costals articulate with the sternum, but they do all articulate with a vertebra. All right, so it's kind of a posterior curve to this. The bodies are a little bit larger because I got to support a little more weight, but what really is remarkable is the spinous process. These are much longer and pointed downwards, right? So inferior directed. That's really obvious. There's also these extra, facets that you see on the side for the ribs, right? So there's tubercles on each costal, and they articulate with these vertebrae, right? They also, we've looked at this previously. The facets, the superior and inferior facets, are directed more vertically as opposed to horizontally like they were in the cervical region, right? The lumbar, the five here, have very thick bodies, right? Large, thick bodies. They're heavy, rectangular spinous processes. And here, the facets are actually kind of curved. So not horizontal or vertical. They're curved. So like the superior ones, as you see here, are curving kind of inwards, and then the inferior ones curve outwards. So it creates an interlocking articulation, which really strengthens this region of the vertebral column. But again, they have these heavy square spinous processes that are real telltale for them. All right, the last two regions, the sacrum and the coccyx. The sacrum is a fused 5 bones that you can see even the previous junctions here on that. And then the coccyx is usually 4 bones that have been, that are just reduced bodies. Whereas again, you can see the features still on the sacrum of what was additional vertebra at one point in development. Okay, so anterior, posterior view. There is, you can't really tell here, but there's this thing called the sacropromontory, which actually is part of the pelvic inlet and helps us determine the ability for a woman to, to go in to have a vaginal delivery. All right. And from a posterior view, you see these spinous processes are fused into what we call a median, so median sacral crest. All right. There's a number of foramina, so small holes here. And then here's your articulations on either side with the ilium in the coxa, which is your hip bone, not the coccyx. Don't confuse those two. All right. There is an opening here called the sacral canal because it links up all the way down, and then there's an opening at the end called a hiatus. All right. So it's usually very easy to identify the sacrum, and I've never really asked the features from that bone, but it does have some interesting things to look at. Again, the coccyx is just 4 bones fused, the body's only. All right, lastly, for the axial skeleton, we talk about the thoracic cage. All right, so we've covered skull, we've covered the hyoid, and we've covered the vertebral column. So the thoracic cage is pretty straightforward. Now, these bones are mostly flat bones, right? And you have, again, like I said, 12. They articulate. Every single one of them articulates with a thoracic vertebra. All right. There are bands of hyaline cartilage that really attach these. And this is important so that there's a lot of flexibility in your rib cage. You don't want solid bone. Again, the costal's coming all the way over and articulating here. All right. So the sternum, to which they articulate, and we often call the breastbone, right, has 3 parts to it, though it is, again, considered one bone, and they fuse together as you age. It looks like a dagger, so we use this term manubrium, which is the handle of a dagger. The body, right, which is a majority, and this is where your landmark for CPR, and then the xiphoid or xiphoid process is like the tip of the dagger here. All right. There is a jugular notch that you can usually feel this very nicely. Again, if you put your hands right where that sternum starts at the superior part. There's a sternal angle. This is where the manubrium meets the body. This is an important landmark because this is where the second costal articulates, as you can see over in this image. And that is generally, for most people, the place where the base of the heart is. So this also helps us to landmark the heart. And then the heart will continue on. It'll start here at the base, and it'll go down until the fifth and sixth intercostal space. So we know we can landmark the heart, and that's why CPR is so successfully done over the body of the sternum. All right? And then there's a clavicular notch where the clavicles are going to come in and articulate, as you can see here. All right? So again, it really protects organs, and it helps us with respiration, this whole rib cage or thoracic cage. And it consists of true ribs, and a true rib would have its own band of cartilage, right? Own unique band of cartilage attaching it to the sternum. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 are considered true ribs. False ribs join through a common band of cartilage. So 8, 9, and 10 are considered false ribs. And then the floating ribs, 11 and 12, make no contact with the sternum. All right? Embryonic development, we do have a few last words to say about this. So the skull, we've talked a little bit about ossification in chapter 6, and we're not really going to talk a whole lot more about it, but this is a good demonstration. You may recall that the cranium actually forms through intramembranous ossification. So it starts off as sheets of dense connective tissue and not cartilage. And these ossification centers, as I show you here, there's a primary and a secondary, and they grow together during in utero development. But they will not be, we won't have a complete conversion. So the fontanelles are the remnants of this basically dense fibrous connective tissue. And they're named pretty much for position, a posterior fontanelle and an anterior fontanelle, right? And then you have a sphenoidal fontanelle, so where the sphenoid bone is adjoining, right? And so what this allows, it allows these plates of bone here that are connected together, so this is a solid, mass. It allows these plates to they're flexible, all right? So we can get a little bit of compression as we move through the birth canal, all right? They are converted to bone starting around 2 months, the remaining fontanelles, right? They just continue the ossification, and generally ends by the 2nd year of life. And we'll see these examples in lab as well. All right, so that really completes our chapter 7 and the exoskeleton. Please let me know if you have any questions.